Good morning, everyone. Oops, my mic's falling. What's up? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is August the 20th. It's a Wednesday today. We do have FOMC minutes later today. As for the overall market, we mentioned potential for continuation lower if we get under its previous day low. So we got underneath its Monday's lows, and you can see really nice continuation towards the downside on both the major indices. QQQ leading towards the downside, SPY eventually falling along here as well. A bunch of tech falling as well. So essentially, right off the bat, we kind of had a tech rotation where SPY was essentially lagging the market, but Qs was leading towards the downside. And we had a bunch of these tech names that had really nice moves lower, especially Palantir. We talked about that kind of daily gap that we have on the higher time frames. We'll talk about some of these tech names and what we expect coming into today. Before we do that, what's up? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jeff B. Roots. What's up, Daniela, Robert? Good morning, KO, Benjamin, Victor. Good morning, JT, Ryan, Detecto. What's up, Joseph? Nontali. Good morning, 50. Willie, Darth, Wayne, Hartik, Juan, Robert, Audrey, PHC. Good morning, Monty, Mozzie, Vate, Cinna, Patrick. Good morning, Candy. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's talk about the major indices, and then we'll go on to some of the tech names that we have coming into today. So, first things first, let's go on to the SPY chart. So SPY coming into yesterday, the key levels that we have marked out was primarily your previous day lows along with this 6465. It's a lot more cleaner here on the SPY chart, but essentially what happened is we ended up breaking underneath this previous day lows. We had that retest, and then we ended up having this continuation all the way back down in towards that 6430. Now, if we go into the lower time frames, you can see that consolidation that we had breaking underneath the retest. Now we're gravitating towards the downside. So coming into today here, the SPY and the Qs are essentially right back down in towards the area that we broke up from, which is essentially your CPI high. So this is the key level coming into today. What we have is your 6430. If we can reclaim this level, we potentially can see a little bit of a mean reversion back in between yesterday's middle of the range. But if we do stay heavy now, we could see some more downside down in towards your pre-market lows and potentially your CPI low, which is going to be down in towards that 6390. Let me actually just go into the SPY chart, since the levels that I do have marked out here are a little bit cleaner and it's a little bit easier to see. As for the SPY, the levels that we have marked out yesterday was our 642. So as our previous day lows, you can see we have multiple touches off this general level. Once we ended up breaking underneath your previous day lows, you can see retest off your 642 in continuation all the way back down in towards this high, which is 638.93. So you can see it really had a straight move, or a very nice move down from 642 all the way down into towards that 638. Now you can see there's multiple reactions, or there's multiple touches here in the pre-market and yesterday. So what we like to see now here for SPY is the reaction that we have off your 638.93. If we can bounce off this level, potentially can have a very small pushback in between yesterday's range. If we do get underneath your 638.93, hold underneath, the next level is going to be this pre-market low here and below, which is going to be that 636.50. So that's what we have for the SPY. The levels we're going to have marked out today is just going to be your previous day lows, 638.83. For the ES, the key level, we can readjust this later, but it's going to be your previous day low here as well, which is essentially going to be your 6422 along with this 6430. We might have to readjust this level here. But for the NQ, so the NQ is the next chart that we have marked out. Key levels, you can see it's a lot weaker, the NQ, compared to the SPY. If we're looking at this, This is our CPI low that we created last week. And now you can see for the ES, we're actually not even below your CPI low, whereas the NQ, we're well below your CPI low. So with the divergence that we had last week, you could tell that the tech was definitely a little bit weaker. And now there's, I would say, a little bit of a rotation out of tech. You can see some of these tech names leading towards the downside. ES somewhat still holding up, whereas the tech is definitely now much more weaker. So for the NQ coming into yesterday, the key levels that we have marked out was our previous day lows, which was that 23,740. You can see we have multiple touches off this general level. Once we broke underneath, you can see retest and continuation towards the downside. Now the next logical levels here for the NQ was that CPI low, which we ended up taking out. Now it's all the way back down in towards this low, which was that 23,520, and now it's all the way back down in towards this 23,400. So for the NQ, coming into today, what we like to see is the reaction that we have off your 23,400. This is a higher time frame key level. This is close to your previous day lows here as well. So coming into today, if you can maintain above this level, we can see just a very small bounce back towards the upside, most likely just back in towards these previous up close candles. If we do want to see more downside underneath this level hold, you could potentially see your pre-market low here and below. So this is going to be a key level coming into today, your 23,400. As for the QQQ, key levels that we have on the Qs, yesterday we had your Monday's lows marked out along with your Friday's lows. You can see multiple touches, broke underneath, retest, continuation towards the downside. Really nice push down and towards that 572. And now you can see price continuing to push towards the lows. Next key level is your 567. So 567, other levels we can have marked out. Let's just mark out this. So we have your 570, we have your 567. You can see really nice push towards the downside on Qs yesterday. Now coming into today, what we like to see is the reaction that we have off of your number one. We're going to have your previous day lows marked out, and then we're going to also have your 570 marked out here as well. So for the Qs, if we still want to see continuation towards the downside, there's a couple scenarios. Pop and fade off of your previous day lows for continuation down in towards your pre-market lows and below. Another scenario, pop up in towards your 570. You can be looking for a continuation lower off your 570 here as well. So that's what we have for the QQQ coming into today. As I mentioned, the Qs is a lot weaker than SPY. So we do expect this one, if we have continuation lower, most likely will be the Qs leading the way towards the downside. So that's what we have for the major indices coming into market open. As for some of the tech names that we have, so let's first start off on let's first start off on Nvidia. So Nvidia, just a lot of consolidation, and now overall dropping with the major indices. The key levels that we have marked out was essentially that 179. So now you can see breaking underneath this 179 key pivot level. Now we gravitated down in towards that 176.50. Next levels here on the higher time frames that I have marked out is going to be this 174.55 along with your 171.40s. So for Nvidia coming into today, what I do have marked out is going to be this 176.50. We have your now overnight lows, or essentially your pre-market lows, 174.50. What I like to see is a reaction that we have off of this level right here, 176.50. If we move up in towards this level, show some weak price action, potentially fade off this level, we could be looking for the pop and fade coming to market open for a push down in towards that 174.50. If the markets do want to show a little bit of strength, at least Nvidia pop right off the bat, then potentially we could be looking for the hold. Now it's going to be above your pre-market highs along with this higher time frame key level 176.50. With the overall market showing weakness, I personally like to see if that first dip is, that first pop is going to get shorted into here on the higher time frame. So that's what we have for Nvidia coming into today. As for AMD, this is one of my main ones for a continuation towards the downside yesterday. I talked about this one having clear levels below, but showing weakness in the pre-market. So this one had weakness in the pre-market compared to the overall indices. pop right off the bat and just kind of bear flag and then just consolidation and then continuation towards the downside. So for AMD now, you can see the next levels that we do have is going to be all the way back down in towards your 162. So this one had some weakness yesterday in the pre-market, and then you had a nice trending day towards the downside. Now for AMD, the next levels that I do have is going to be this 162. So what we have here on AMD, we have your 167 marked out, which is essentially your previous day lows. If you can get that retest off of your previous day lows, that would be super nice for a continuation towards the downside. If we just end up consolidating, continuing lower here as well, that can also be a scenario, but I personally like to see the pop and fade off of your previous day lows for continuation down in towards that 162. So that's what we have for AMD coming into today. As for Apple, a lot more consolidation. Apple's still holding up compared to the overall markets. You can see Apple's only down 0.1%. If we do end up bouncing here, Apple potentially could be one of the names we keep an eye out on for continuation higher, but the overall market is now fairly weak. For Apple, key levels that we have is your 230.50. You can see we have multiple touches around this general level. If you want to see any sort of upside, reclaim back above this 230.50 for potential push back up and towards your 232.50. If you do want to see some more downside here on Apple, key level now is going to be your previous day lows. You like to see maintain underneath your previous day lows for continuation towards the downside. As for Tesla, not too much to talk about on this name. Nice kind of pop and fade right off the bat. We gravitated up and towards your last Friday's highs. It kind of faded off that level. Now we're right back down in towards your previous day lows along with your last week's lows, which is your 327. So coming into today here for Tesla, keep an eye out on this 327 break underneath 327 hold. We can see some more continuation towards the downside underneath this key pivot level. So that's going to be very key here. Previous day lows along with your Friday's lows from last week. Underneath it, we can see some more downside here on Tesla, right? The next levels, if we can break underneath, is going to be all the way back down in towards that 322. So keep an eye out on this name if we can get underneath this 327. As for a few other names, Google, this one kind of confirming this head and shoulders now here on the 1 hour chart, but key level now, as you can see, right, kind of this head and shoulders playing out here on the higher time frames. What we have marked out is this 201.50. If we break underneath this level, hold underneath this 201.50, right, we can see a pretty quick move down in towards that 198. So I'd be a little bit cautious here on Google. If you are looking for longs, right, underneath your 201.50s, we can see some downside. Longs now will be best above your 205. So a lot of these names now showing a little bit more weakness. This is also your Monday's highs, right? We're much more neutral now and leaning a little bit more towards the downside, but we're opening to playing both sides of the market. So that's what we have on Google. Microsoft, now we talked about this earnings low, which is your 509. So we had two levels here on Microsoft. We had our full daily gap, and now also we have your earnings low. So you can see right off the bat, nice push towards the downside underneath your previous day lows, holding underneath your previous day lows, essentially retesting this right here, and then a nice push down in towards that earnings low, which is that 509. So that was one of our main objectives here on Microsoft. Now I expect a little bit of buyers to essentially step in. We have had essentially a straight line towards the downside. So now, right, I'd like to see buyers step in off this general area, which is essentially going to be your 508 here on Microsoft. As for Meta, this one pushing lower here as well. We also had this daily gap down in towards this key high, which is our 747. This one also has a pretty big daily gap here as well. So if I remove this level, what we have marked out on Meta, now we can mark out this 747.50. If we look at this on the daily time frame, if we're unable to hold this key level of support, another one where we can see a little bit of a bigger pullback here down in towards this full daily gap that we have. So I'd be cautious here on Meta if the buyers don't step in off this 747. If we can step in here, we can see a little bit of a bounce back towards the highs. If we do break underneath your 747, we can see some more continuation towards the downside underneath this key pivot low. So that's what we have for Meta. As for Amazon, This one pulling back with the overall indices. Key levels that we have marked out yesterday was our 231.50s, which was our long towards the upside. And then you can see we had our previous day lows marked out here as well. So not too much to talk about here on Amazon, but now showing a little bit more weakness underneath that 228.26. The key levels that we have marked out, 228.26, and now we have our 226 here. Let's actually refine this. So yeah, we have our 226 here on the higher time frames. And then for Netflix, this one is just pulling back off our key level. So coming into today here for the major indices along with some of these tech names. So number one, we know that the Qs are weaker than the SPY in itself. So that's why we were looking to short some of these tech names yesterday, just because there's a rotation out of tech, just based off of the divergence between the SPY and the Q. So for the SPY and the Qs coming into today, we're going to keep an eye out on key levels being your previous day lows along with your 570 if the market does want to continue to stay weak towards the downside. As for SPY, previous day lows is going to be key. If we break underneath, we can see continuation lower. If we maintain above this level, we can see a little bit of a bounce back up and towards your after hours high 640. So that's what we have here for the major indices coming into today. As for some of the tech names that I'm interested in, really it's just going to be based now off of intraday price action. A lot of these names are showing a lot more weakness. I do like AMD just because it's showing the most weakness out of most names here. So the key levels that I have marked out, let me just refine this now, is going to be your previous day lows 166.50. So if you can potentially get that retest, right, potential pop and fade on AMD off of your 166.50 previous day lows, this is going to be looking really good for continuation lower down in towards that 162. I'm not sure if we are going to get that, but we'll keep an eye out on AMD for continuation lower towards the downside. I do also like Tesla here if we can break underneath its previous day lows here and hold. So keep an eye out on Tesla underneath that 327. And then those are my primary main watches for continuation lower. And then potentially Meta, we do have this higher time frame daily gap. So if we do break underneath this key level support, which is your 746, we could see some more downside here on Meta. So we'll keep an eye out on Meta underneath your 476 for potential continuation towards the downside. Let's also talk about Palantir here as well. Let me actually clean up my chart. So what we have on Palantir was this earnings push towards the downside. So essentially another earnings reversal play. So for Palantir, once we broke underneath your 172, which is that earnings high we talked about. So earnings high, also a very key level along with your previous day lows. Next logical level here on Palantir was all the way back down in towards your gap fill, 162 and potentially below here on Palantir. So now if we're looking at this from a daily time frame perspective, you can see price really overextended towards the upside, showing a lot of weakness the past week. Broke underneath this key level 170. Next level is going to be that full daily gap back down in towards that 160. So as you can see here for Palantir, once we broke underneath that 170, we had a really nice push within the first 15 minutes towards the downside. A little bit of reaction off this full daily gap, which is that 161, but ultimately stayed heavy. That first pop got shorted into. Now you can see we had this nice continuation towards the downside. So for Palantir, key levels that I have marked out now on Palantir is going to be number one, this 150.98, this daily pivot low. We also have your 145. As for key levels of support, what I do have now here on Palantir is really going to be all the way back down and towards this 145. That's personally where I'd like to see kind of the buyer step in, at least on the daily and weekly time frame, is going to be your 145 key pivot level and all the way back down and towards 124, which is very far away. But I'd first like to see the reaction off of your 145 along with this 148. So for Palantir coming into today, levels that I have marked out is going to be your previous day lows, 158. So we can mark this out. We also have your 155 And now what we have is your 151 along with this 145. So for Palantir, this one did have a really big push towards the downside, pretty overextended now. As you can see, what I like to see is most likely going to be this pop and fade off of your 155 for a continuation down in towards that 151 here and below. So that's what we have for Palantir. And we'll keep an eye out on this one. All right. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over, I'll take a look at them now. As for the red order block retest, let me pull this up. As for some of the key economic events coming into today, what we do have is FOMC minutes. As I mentioned earlier this week, it's not the major FOMC statement, it's FOMC minutes. So we can be looking for trading opportunities beforehand. Because it is a major red folder news event, but it's not the main three, which is FOMC, PPI, and CPI. So that's what we have coming into today, FOMC minutes. So we'll keep that in mind. As for tomorrow, we do have unemployment flash services along with the Jackson Hole that's going to start tomorrow as well. So that's what we have for the red folder news. Okay. All right. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers now, you guys can drop it in the chat and I'll go over them. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like. Also, if you guys haven't joined the watch list, that one is in the description as well. Good morning. What's up, everyone? Let's see. I sent how can I join live trade membership with you. I sent a message on your Facebook, but I didn't receive a reply. I don't have Facebook, so make sure it's not a scam. I don't have a Facebook page. If you are going to message me, you can use the links in the description either through Instagram, or if you really want to connect with me, you can send it to my email as well. All right, let's see. What do you think about Walmart? Walmart has earnings this week, so we'll take a look at Walmart here in a second. As for UNH, so UNH, nice push towards the upside now. Overall dropping with the indices. Key levels that we have for UNH is 310. Now we also have your 302 and kind of this earnings high, which is that 296. So for UNH coming into today, what I would like to see is reclaim back above 302 for a potential move back up and towards this 308. That's what we have here on UNH. This is going to be our key level 302, as I mentioned. If we do break underneath 302, potentially we can see some downside here, down in towards our low that we created from last week. So that's going to be the key level that we have marked out coming into today. As for Intel, this one, nice pop yesterday. So we had news last week, nice continuation. We have news on Monday as well. Nice kind of pop right off the bat. Now for Intel, key levels that we have to see reclaim, in my opinion, is going to be this 2560. So this is the key level. This is your last week's high here as well. You can see this is where we had that initial reaction off of. So for Intel, if you want to see some upside here, reclaim back above your 2560, hold above this level for a continuation towards upside. Besides that, I'll be a little bit more cautious of the potential kind of pop and fade off your 2560. So that's why we like to see the reclaim now back above this key level for continuation back towards upside. As for Target, this one recently had earnings this morning, actually, and I can see we're pushing lower. Key levels that we have marked out was this daily gap, but of course, right, earnings now pushing this lower. Key levels now is going to be this 97.37. Next levels towards the downside is going to be this 93. So you can see now Target is just continuing towards the downside. We like to see if there's any sort of reaction here. If we do want to see downside underneath now 93, hold for a continuation lower. If we do see some buyers step in, potentially just kind of a mean reversion back up and towards your 97. We go over Hood. So yeah, for Hood, a lot of these ones pulling back. So you can see Hood, kind of SoFi. When these names are pulling back, that's a good indication of the market's kind of slowing down, especially something like Palantir, which is a growth stock primarily. Whenever these pull back, it's a good indication of the market is, all right, a little bit more fearful. because usually these names, right, there's a clear kind of rotation now out of a couple of these tickers. So for something like Hood, still holding up here on the daily time frame, but you can see pretty big daily candle. You can see the momentum definitely going to slow down here on Palantir now, similar to what I did back here, right, with this big earnings gap. Right now, we had that earnings gap back towards the downside. In this case, similar thing, big push higher. We actually already filled the earnings gap. Now you can see a little bit of a pullback down and towards key levels of support. So for Hood, this one's still actually holding up fairly nicely, but key levels that we have marked out now is going to be essentially this earnings high. So if your earnings high plus the day we actually had earnings, which is your 107. So for Hood, we can actually remove a few levels here. Key levels is going to be this 107. At least from a 1 hour time frame perspective, if we maintain underneath this 107, you can see a little bit more downside underneath your 107 down in towards that 104. If we can reclaim this key level, which is going to be a little bit difficult, potentially we can see a mean reversion back up in towards your 111 after this pretty big day yesterday towards the downside. Most likely now that first pop is going to be shorted towards the downside. So I'll keep an eye out on your 107.50 here on Hood. All right, let me scroll down here as well. IWM. So IWM pulling back here, a little bit of reaction off of your 228.50. You can see that's the key level that we have on IWM. Multiple touches off here, and now you can see kind of this pop being shorted towards the downside. Now the key levels that we still have here on IWM is going to be that 226. We'd like to see this level hold for this continuation towards the upside. If we do break underneath your 226.30s, the next level is going to be all the way back down and towards that 223. So that's what we have here on Hood. I missed your take on SPY. Yeah, we'll go over SPY later, but a lot of times if you rewind it to the very start, I go over, right, SPY, Qs, all these names on the right-hand side. Do you buy the first out of the money contract when you enter the trade? So we buy out the money contracts are the ones with the most volume, and we primarily buy weekly contracts. We go over a few more down here as well. Let's see. How do you know if today will be bull/bearish based on indices? Is there a correlation between the ES and NQ given the market hours and differ? So you never know if its price is going to be bullish or bearish. That's why we have a couple scenarios laid out, and we're going to be reacting to price. So something like the Qs yesterday, we're fairly neutral, but we're leaning a little bit more towards the downside on the QQQ. ES was a lot more neutral at the very beginning of market open, but we're just looking for the reaction that we have off of your previous day low. So if we break underneath your previous day lows, then we can see continuation towards the downside. So right off the bat, Qs broke underneath their previous day lows, and we're essentially bearish all day, and we're looking for short setups towards the downside. At least today, after this big trending day lower. Now, similar thing, the key levels that we can have marked out, if we wanted to refine the levels, we can mark this out in towards our previous day lows, which is going to be that 568.50. So in this case here for the QQQ, similar thesis, right? After yesterday's price action, really big push lower. If we maintain underneath their previous day lows, we're going to be leaning more towards the downside for a continuation lower, just based off of yesterday's price action and the higher time frames now. If we even reclaim, this is a trade I'm not as interested in, just because, right, we're higher time frame bearish now and the order flow is bearish. So even if we do reclaim your previous day lows, I'm not as interested. More likely be interested in, right, the break back underneath, or, right, the pop and fade off your previous day lows right off the bat. So that's what I'm keeping an eye out here on the SPY and the QQQ as well. What discretionary concepts can we use as a trader to make higher trades? The discretion will come in based off of, right, intraday, like relative strength and weakness. That's primarily the discretion that we have, just because that's more just comparing the overall tech name to the indices themselves. Besides that, we try and keep everything as mechanical as possible, but that's where the discretion is going to come in, is really either based off the higher time frames, or it's going to be based off of, right, intraday relative strength. Homie's too young for Facebook. Yeah, no, I have Facebook, but I definitely don't use it. So if someone's messaging you, then it's definitely a scam. All right, let me scroll down here as well. Let's see, how do you draw so fast? Like you go from drawing them to marking circles and arrows. Yeah, that's just because I get used to it. But all the levels are the same thing. They're just always old highs and old lows. All right. Let me go over a couple of these names here. ALGN, I'll go over ALGN. All right, so this one, big earnings gap towards the downside a couple weeks ago, kind of taking out this key pivot low, but now we just have marked out is just going to be your earnings high plus your earnings low. So earnings high, earnings low here. That's your key levels that we have marked out. 149, multiple touches. What we like to see now is the reaction that we have off your earnings high and earnings low. So this one now came very close to your earnings high. And now we also can have this level marked out here as well, 142. Potential kind of pop and fade for a move lower. You could also be looking for maybe the bounce play off your 142 for a push back up in towards that 149 here. Yeah, gold should see a little bit more volatility here just based off of yesterday's price action, but still consolidating quite a bit. Key levels we just have marked out 3322 along with this 3345. So for gold, you can see now showing a little bit more volatility, breaking underneath this key level. You can see this nice reclaim and now pushing back up and towards these key highs. So for gold, for looking at this still here on the higher time frames, just slowly now pushing back higher. What I would like to see after this nice reclaim is the push back up and towards your 3344, potentially along with your 3356 here as well. So I like to see at least now kind of this break of structure here on the higher time frames. If we can break above, potentially we can start trending back up and towards the upside here now on gold. Okay. All right, let me go on to my game plan. I guess we have a few more minutes here, so we'll go over a few other names here on the higher time frames, and then I will talk about my game plan once more, and then I'll call it a day here. So for a couple of these names, you can see, right, MU pushing underneath, right, showing some weakness now here in the pre-market. A lot of these names are pulling back. So if we're looking at this from an hourly time frame perspective, a lot more neutral here on the hourly. So that's when you know price is either slowing down or you're going to be a lot more neutral is when this hourly chart, it's not as bullish anymore. You can see price is definitely slowing down on a lot of these tickers, even names that were originally bullish, right? Because the overall market is dragging them down. HIMS is something we can take a look at for a potential trade down in towards your 4090. So we'll keep an eye on HIMS. This one has been higher time frame bearish for a while. Key level is going to be this 42. So if now potential kind of pop and fade is in play, or we could be looking for the break underneath your previous day lows for this continued push towards the downside, 4090 here on the higher time frame. So that's what we have for HIMS. We can keep an eye out on this one. MSTR, definitely pulling back here with Bitcoin and the overall indices themselves, breaking underneath key pivot levels. So you can see MSTR breaking underneath this key level of support, which is your 3060. So I'll be a little bit more cautious. Potential first pop shorted down here on MSTR as well. So you can keep an eye out on your previous day lows. Whenever you have something like this, right, big push towards the downside, what you'd be interested in would be the pop and fade, right? Kind of pop up in towards either your pre-market highs or any sort of pop in the overall indices or the actual name in itself for this continuation towards the downside. So you can keep an eye out on your pre-market highs here on MSTR and be look for the pop and fade off of your 342 for continuation lower. Coin dropping, SoFi. Nice push on SoFi. We also had news yesterday as well up in towards your key level, which is your 2490s. This one, right, a little bit of a bigger pullback here with the overall indices, right? Pretty big down close candle here as well. But for SoFi, right, another kind of reaction off this 2550. This is a very key level here on the higher time frames. You can see how many touches we've had off this general level. Now we have 1, 2, 3, and now 4 touches off of your 25 key psych level here on SoFi. As for the rest of the tickers, let me go on Circle. Circle weak here as well on the daily chart. We also actually just filled our full daily gap. So now you can see Circle, right, filled your full daily gap here. We do expect some buyers to step in off this general level. So I'd be a little bit more cautious if you're looking for more continuation towards the downside here on Circle. just because we have that full daily gap. But if you do want to see some downside right underneath now, it's going to be your previous day lows for continuation lower towards the downside. And then UNH already went over this one, but key level is going to be that 302. Okay. All right. I'm going to go over my game plan today, and then I'm going to get ready for market open. So today we do have FOMC minutes later into today, which is going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I mentioned, we'll see the reaction that we have within the first kind of 10 to 15 minutes in the overall indices. If you do want to continue lower, key level is going to be your previous day lows. Underneath your previous day lows, continuation towards the downside. So previous day lows is going to be key for the QQQ, similar thing here. Underneath your previous day lows, we can see some more continuation towards the downside. So that's going to be our key level for the SPY and Qs coming into today. If the SPY holds your previous day lows, we're just going to see a little bit more consolidation until we can break back underneath your previous day lows. As for my main watches for continuation lower today, it's going to be number 1, AMD for potential pop and fade down in towards that 162. I don't think we're going to get that previous day low retest, but if we do, that'd be awesome. As for Nvidia, we can keep an eye out on this one right around your previous day lows currently. Underneath your previous day lows, we can be looking for continuation lower. As for Tesla, I do like this one here as well. If you can get underneath its previous day lows, 327. If we can get underneath, I like to see this one for continuation towards the downside. As for a few other names I do like, Meta, a hold underneath now, it's going to be this 746. We can see this pretty big gap towards the downside. So for Meta, we do have a lot of room. So big push towards the downside here on Meta. If you consolidate in this general area, break underneath your 746 later into the session, or maybe right off the bat, we can be looking for continuation towards the downside underneath your 746. And so those are the primary names I'm looking for. All the other names, just keep an eye out on your previous day lows. I do like Palantir as well, just because we had a lot of volume on Palantir yesterday. I do expect more volatility on this name coming to market open. Plus, it's down about 3% here in the pre-market. So for Palantir, the key levels that I have marked out now is your 151. So we have your previous day lows marked out, which is your 157. Now we have marked out, which is your 151. If you can get that pop up and towards your 157, that would be great for continuation lower. This one you can already see kind of rejected off this key pivot point here in the pre-market. So for now, Palantir most likely will have to base it off of intraday price action. And then now the reaction that we have off of your 151 along with this 157. So we'll keep an eye out on Palantir. But this one now is primarily just going to be based off of intraday price action, or if you can get that pop up towards your previous day lows. And then we have a couple other ones. Keep an eye out on Hood as well, underneath its previous day lows in this 107.50. And then a bunch of other names here that look good if the market does want to stay heavy. All right. So yeah, that's kind of the game plan coming into today. We're just going to keep an eye out on the major indices off of your previous day lows if we do want to see more continuation towards the downside. AMD, Tesla, Meta, Palantir, the ones I'm focusing on for potential moves right off the bat for continuation lower. If the market does want to reclaim, show some strength, then we're most likely just going to wait probably until the FOMC statement. So we'll see what happens. If markets do want to continue to stay heavy, we'll look to ride the trend towards the downside. If we reclaim above your previous day lows, then we'll be a little bit more cautious until we can break back underneath. That will be key. All right. That is going to be it for me today. Let's see what else. What indicators do I use? I primarily use, I have a few indicators. I have the Traders Lab indicator, which draws out our opening ranges. That's an indicator I use. And then on my other chart, I don't use really, it's just more, I don't really use indicators. I just have them as a confluence in itself. So I have VWAP 9 and 21 EMA. So that's what I'll have. I won't take a trade based off of those indicators. I'll only take a trade if they have multiple confluences. Is there anything else other than just correlation for discretion in intraday trading? Well, there's entry models, how aggressive you want to be, right? If by kind of reading the tape. If you want to be really aggressive, maybe based off a higher time frame thesis, right? You get in, not really an entry model, but just based off a higher time frame thesis, that can be a little bit more discretion. There can be a lot of things that are discretionary when it does come to trading. It just depends on how much you want to make it discretionary, and then right the confluences as well. All right. Send you a message on Instagram. Okay, I'll try and check that one out. All right, yeah, that is going to be it for me today. I'm gonna get ready for market open here now. If you guys did enjoy that, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like. If you guys do want to join the watch list, that one is also in the description below as well. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. Peace.